Tank command and induction notices. Jethro's military ambitions begin. In the golden age of American television, few series captured the gentle absurdity of cultural collision with the consistent warmth and precision of the Beverly Hillbillies. The composite script under consideration, drawn primarily from late 1967 episodes of the show's sixth season, opens with a sequence that immediately reasserts the series' central comic engine, the Clampett family's unfiltered rural sensibility colliding with the refined, often fragile world of Beverly Hills. At the heart of this opening movement stands Jethro Bodine's sudden and overwhelming enthusiasm for military service. An enthusiasm expressed not through ordinary enlistment papers but through the acquisition of an actual tank. The resulting cascade of misunderstandings, physical comedy and character revelation establishes both the immediate plot and the deeper thematic concerns that will echo throughout the subsequent episodes. The script begins not with the Clampetts themselves but with a telephone conversation that places the audience firmly in the anxious orbit of Milburn Drysdale and his long-suffering secretary Miss Jane Hathaway. Drysdale's voice rendered with the familiar mixture of proprietary concern and mounting hysteria that Raymond Bailey perfected across the series' run inquires after Granny and Ellie Mae. The reply from the Clampett household reveals that the women are expected any minute, and that the speaker has been left in charge of a wild animal. The clarification that follows, "No ma'am, I don't mean Jethro," is classic Beverly Hillbillies construction, a throwaway line that simultaneously acknowledges Jethro's larger-than-life presence and sets up the genuine, wild creature, the grizzly cub left in the household's care. Miss Jane's offer of assistance, delivered with her characteristic mixture of professional duty and personal curiosity, is politely declined. Cousin Bessie is already helping with the other little critters and Jessie is returning from the airport with the womenfolk. The exchange is brief, yet it efficiently re-establishes the domestic ecology of the Clampett mansion, a place where wild animals, eccentric relatives and sudden absences are simply part of the daily texture. The tone shifts abruptly when Drysdale demands his morning newspaper. Miss Jane's hesitation, "I don't think you should see it. It will only upset you," is met with Drysdale's weary insistence that nothing could possibly upset him after the recent tank episode. What follows is one of the script's most concentrated bursts of retrospective comedy. Drysdale recounts in a rising crescendo of indignation the sequence of events that has already entered Clampett Lord Jethro's induction notice. Jed's decision to buy him a tank, Drysdale's forced service as tank crew, the von Hindenburg costume and the subsequent arrest. The line, "He dresses me up like von Hindenburg, and I get arrested," is delivered with the precise comic timing that Bailey specialized in, each clause a fresh wound. Each pause an opportunity for the audience to register the accumulating glisnade, humiliation. The subsequent declaration that he will not be upset by a mere newspaper is undercut by the immediate sound of his own laughter and the panicked realization that everybody in the bank will hear you. The script's stage direction of "Oh gosh, ha ha ha, this gets out, I'll be ruined," captures the peculiar mixture of private despair and public performance that defined Drysdale's character. He is a man whose professional dignity is perpetually at the mercy of the Clampetts' good-natured chaos. And the tank incident has left a scar that the morning paper threatens to reopen. The transition from Drysdale's office to the Clampett tank itself is handled with the series' customary efficiency. Jethro's voice, full of the unself-conscious authority of a newly minted 4-star general, complains that "Granny is busting my eardrums." Granny's retort, "Hush up both of you, this is the last time I'm ever holding females in my tank," establishes the physical reality of the vehicle, overcrowded, noisy and already the site of domestic friction. The revelation that Jethro had returned the tank only to repurchase it after observing the respect accorded a tank general is pure Jethro logic. Max Baer Jr.'s performance, even in transcript form, conveys the character's combination of childlike wonder and absolute self-assurance. The airport salutes from soldiers, sailors, Marines, Air Force are recalled with the pride of a man who has discovered a new and highly effective form of social currency. In the cultural context of 1967, when the Vietnam War was intensifying and the draft was an inescapable reality for young American men, Jethro's private acquisition of a tank functions as both comic exaggeration and gentle satire. Where other young men received induction notices with dread or resignation, Jethro responds by purchasing the ultimate symbol of military power and treating induction as an opportunity for personal pageantry. The arrival of the tank at the Clampett mansion brings the first major visual and physical comedy set piece of the script. Granny's demand for her medical bag, "Jane, fetch my medical bag," is met with concern for her health, only to be clarified the bag is for the general. Jethro's insistence that he is unhurt is immediately undercut by the physical comedy of the cramped interior. The introduction of Pearl the pig, named for Jethro's mother and described as the quietest female in the tank, extends the episode's running joke about the relative merits of human and animal passengers. Jed's calm acceptance of the pig contrasted with Jethro's military posturing, "You're talking to a 4-star, 2-gun general," illustrates the series' consistent hierarchy of values. Jed's authority is moral and paternal rather than hierarchical, Jethro's is purely performative. The exchange also quietly reasserts the Clampett's rural relationship to animals. Pearl is not a pet in the suburban sense but a member of the household economy soon to be led around back. Drysdale's subsequent arrival and his determination to have Jethro inducted now today introduce the central conflict of the opening movement. The banker's logic is pragmatic and self-protective. If Jethro is not promptly inducted, he might join the Navy and persuade Jed to buy a destroyer or the Air Force and secure a B-52. The script's comic escalation is characteristic. Each hypothetical purchase is more extravagant than the last, and each is presented as a logical extension of Jed's indulgent parenting. Jed's mild inquiry, "What was that about me buying a B-52?" and the subsequent misunderstanding about his own approaching 52nd birthday provide a brief interlude of verbal comedy that softens the banker's urgency without diminishing it. The conversation also allows Miss Jane to reappear in her dual role as secretary and occasional moral counterweight. Her presence a reminder that Drysdale's schemes rarely proceed without some form of internal resistance. The decision that Jethro cannot enter the army without a physical examination sets the stage for Granny's intervention, the consequences of which will dominate the next phase of the narrative. Granny's insistence that she rather than any army doctor will conduct the examination is rooted in both maternal protectiveness and deep suspicion of institutional medicine. Her declaration that it was one of them goomas that killed Jed's cousin and her subsequent misidentification of general peritonitis as a physician reveal the depth of her distrust. In the cultural landscape of the 1960s, when the military medical establishment was both a gateway to service and a source of anxiety for many families, Granny's determination to keep Pearl's baby out of the hands of strangers carries a quiet emotional weight beneath the comedy. Her promise to Pearl, "I promised her I'd take care of him," anchors the farce in genuine familial loyalty. The physical examination itself, though fully realized in the subsequent part of the script, is already foreshadowed in the opening sequences by the presence of the medical bag and Granny's authoritative manner. The tank, the induction notice, the pig and the banker's panic together form a complete comic ecosystem. Each element reinforces the others. Jethro's military ambition requires the tank requires Drysdale's reluctant participation. Drysdale's participation generates the newspaper story that threatens his dignity. The threatened dignity accelerates the push toward induction. The push toward induction activates Granny's protective instincts. The result is a self-sustaining cycle of escalation that is both tightly constructed and seemingly effortless. Historically, the episode's treatment of military service reflects the complicated atmosphere of late 1967. The draft was a lived reality for millions of American families, protests against the war were growing, and the image of the eager volunteer had acquired new layers of irony and pathos. The Beverly Hillbillies approaches this charged subject with characteristic indirection. Jethro's enthusiasm is real, but it is the enthusiasm of a man who understands military service primarily as an opportunity for uniforms, respect, and large vehicles. The army in turn is presented not as a sinister institution but as a bureaucracy that can be baffled by the Clampett's particular brand of sincerity. The comedy never tips into outright satire of the war itself. Instead, it uses the draft as a narrative engine for the series' enduring concerns, the resilience of family bonds, the absurdity of class distinctions, and the quiet dignity of people who refuse to be embarrassed by their own origins. Buddy Ebsen's Jed Clampett remains the calm center of this opening storm. His lines are few, but each is weighted with the character's characteristic mixture of patience and quiet authority. When he observes that Jethro must be inducted now today, the statement is less a command than a recognition of practical necessity. Irene Ryan's granny, by contrast, is all kinetic energy and fierce protectiveness. Even before the examination begins, her presence dominates the tank sequence and the subsequent domestic discussion. Max Baer Jr. Jethro is the engine of pure comic momentum. His pride in the tank, his insistence on military protocol, and his complete lack of self-consciousness create a character who is simultaneously ridiculous and oddly admirable. Donna Douglas's Ellie Mae, though largely off-stage in these opening moments, is already present through the references to the womenfolk and the pig. A reminder that the family's emotional center remains intact even when its members are physically scattered. The script's language in these early scenes rewards close attention. The mixture of formal military terminology and rural idiom, 4-star, 2-gun general holding females in my tank, the quietest female in the tank, creates a linguistic texture that is unique to the series. The Clampetts do not merely misunderstand Beverly Hills, they translate its institutions into their own vocabulary, and in doing so they reveal the arbitrary nature of those institutions. A tank is not a weapon of war but a vehicle that commands respect at the airport. An induction notice is not a summons to duty but an invitation to acquire impressive equipment. A physical examination is not a bureaucratic requirement but an opportunity for Granny to exercise her healing arts. Each translation is comic, yet each also contains a quiet critique of the original institution's pretensions. As the opening movement draws to a close, the stage is fully set for the physical examination that will follow. Jethro has been ordered to remove his clothes. Granny has asserted her medical authority. Drysdale has made clear his determination to see the induction completed before further expensive equipment can be purchased. The tank sits in the driveway, a monument to Jethro's ambition and Jed's indulgence. Pearl the pig has been led around back. The morning newspaper remains unread in Drysdale's office, its potential for further humiliation still latent. In these carefully arranged elements, the script demonstrates the series' mastery of comic architecture. Every detail is both immediately funny and preparatory for the larger structures of misunderstanding that will unfold. The enduring appeal of this opening sequence lies in its generosity. The Clampetts are never objects of condescension. Their logic, however eccentric, is allowed to operate with internal consistency. Drysdale's panic is treated with affectionate exaggeration rather than cruelty. The military itself is neither glorified nor demonized, it is simply another institution that must accommodate the Clampetts' particular reality. In an era when American television was beginning to confront more overtly political subjects, the Beverly Hillbillies maintained its commitment to a comedy of character and situation, trusting that the collision of rural values and urban pretension would continue to generate laughter without requiring topical invective. The tank sequence, with its blend of physical farce, verbal wit, and quiet character revelation, stands as a representative example of that commitment. It invites the audience to laugh not at the Clampetts but with them, and in doing so it reaffirms the series' central article of faith that decency, loyalty, and a certain unself-conscious dignity remain powerful even or especially when clothed in the unlikely uniform of a privately purchased tank.